Ah yes, corn. The government and overlords' favorite crop to genetically modify and produce for the worthless citizens. When it's not being used to produce oil that will clog your arteries and destroy your liver, it's going to production for the all-too-common high-fructose corn syrup. Due to heavy subsidizing, over the past several decades, many foods that have historically contained table sugar now have its less appealing counterpart instead. Table sugar, also known as sucrose, is a linkage of two simple carbohydrates, glucose and fructose. It is of course derived from sugar cane, which naturally contains nearly all of its calories from sucrose. Corn, on the other hand, is mostly starch, a linkage of multiple glucose molecules, and this starch is the starting material to make the sugar substitute. It needs to be broken down into individual glucose molecules and then partially converted into fructose to mimic the composition of sucrose. However, it looks like this process leaves much to be desired in terms of efficiency. The manufacturers will tell you that high fructose corn syrup is either 42% or 55% fructose, with the rest of the calories being provided from glucose. However, a 2010 analysis seems to refute this claim. The investigators took samples of the ubiquitous corn sludge and tried to break it down into simpler carbohydrates in order to quantify them. Nothing unexpected happens when this process is done for table sugar, but the high fructose corn syrup had up to 5 times the amount of total carbohydrates as the listed value. Something else is going on here. Much of these mystery carbs were in the form of shorter chains of starch. Starch seems to be an inferior source of energy in comparison to sucrose. Eating sucrose increases energy expenditure relative to starch. We can see this difference when animals are fed either a high starch or high sucrose diet, the latter of which creates a leaner animal which also produces more energy and stays warmer, all of which are protective for our health and generally make us feel good. This complicates things, especially when most people assume that high fructose corn syrup and table sugar are essentially the same. However, lumping them together is a massive error that skews our perception. For example, this 2007 so-called critical examination of the evidence stated, "Studies analyzing the differences between high fructose corn syrup and sucrose consumption and their contributions to weight gain do not exist," and then conclude by saying, "The expert panel concluded that high fructose corn syrup does not appear to contribute to overweight and obesity any differently than do other energy sources." Gotta love when we vote on science instead of actually doing experiments, especially when the voters are supported by the companies who produce the substance in question. Unfortunately, this is another problem with many of the experiments in humans. Of the 7 experiments comparing sucrose and high fructose corn syrup head to head, 5 of them were funded by the corn industry and another from the USDA, a notorious big corn shill. All of these studies are pretty short and tend to poorly control for other factors in the diets or the participants. Thankfully, we've subjected plenty of animals to the corn sludge under ideal conditions to test the differences. These studies didn't get any industry or government funding, were longer, and the authors didn't even cite each other's works, a good indication to me that the results are reliable. One study giving animals free access to either sucrose or high fructose corn syrup solutions found that the animals consuming the corn syrup gained significantly more weight, despite eating the same amount of calories. The lead researcher stated, "Some people have claimed that high fructose corn syrup is no different than other sweeteners when it comes to weight gain and obesity, but our results make it clear that this just isn't true. When rats are drinking high fructose corn syrup at levels well below those in soda pop, they're becoming obese, every single one across the board. These rats aren't just getting fat, they're demonstrating characteristics of obesity, including substantial increases in abdominal fat and circulating triglycerides." Another study in pigs corroborated these findings, showing that sucrose and high fructose corn syrup both led to body weight gain, but the former tended to increase lean mass while the latter led to more fat gain. Gaining liver fat is also something that has been shown when animals consume high fructose corn syrup, but not when consuming table sugar. Researchers continue to hypothesize that it is the higher amount of fructose in the corn syrup relative to table sugar that causes issues. However, one study showed that feeding rodents high fructose corn syrup still led to more fat gain, especially in the liver, than sucrose or even pure fructose. Keep in mind that these effects are independent of caloric intake, supporting the notion that there's more to high fructose corn syrup than meets the eye.
Transformers, more than meets the eye.
There's a reason that bottle of Mexican Coke just hits different than the American version. The body always knows what's best for it. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and follow us on our social media pages, which you can find in the description. If you really enjoyed it, please consider donating to us through our Patreon or our crypto wallets. We also offer numerous one-on-one personal health consulting options if you donate. As always, don't let them fool you. Subscribe to our channel.